Welcome to the Philip Wiley Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Philip Wiley.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Philip Wiley Show. Today I'm very excited to have Reanna Shultz joining me today. We were connected on Twitter and LinkedIn for a while, but we didn't get to meet until B-Sides Las Vegas this year. And then we saw each other again at B-Sides Albuquerque and also at Texas Cyber Summit too, wasn't it?
No, not Texas this year. Yeah.
Okay. So it's great to have you on the show. And I was pretty impressed with your presentation at B-Sides Albuquerque. You're an awesome speaker. And I really like one of the things, I don't know why I didn't think about this sooner, but I like the way you put the QR codes on your slides to make it easier for people to get access to your slides and to connect with you.
Awesome. Thank you. It's kind of funny because this year, I was talking about social engineering and evaluating risk in a business. And I have this QR codes. And at the end, I always get this one person in the audience that's like, is the QR codes phishing? And I'm like, no, it's not. I promise.
Yeah, they're worried about getting rickrolled. That's a good opportunity. Yeah. But very good idea.
That's not this year's content.
It'd be tempting to do, but you really want to ruin that for future talks. So very cool. So why don't you introduce yourself for the audience and just kind of tell us your origin story, kind of how you got started in cyber.
Yeah, so I kind of have a very fun background. I feel like some people kind of sometimes accidentally stumble into cybersecurity. I was one of those people that did not know anything about cyber prior. I grew up in the Kansas City, Missouri area. In fact, I grew up in a very, very small town. We did not have a turn lane, let alone any stoplights whatsoever. So the first time I experienced a stoplight was in college. And I attended college wanting to be a state highway patrolman. And if you have ever taken a criminal justice class, it's a lot of law and a lot of legal terms and stuff like that. Fun fact, that was not whatsoever any of my passions or interests. And I said, this is not for me. I'm not wasting 4 years of college on classes I do not care about. And during college, I was real into bodybuilding. I was super involved in the gym. I was in local weight groups. And I was like, what can I do to incorporate my interest with weightlifting and also education? So I go physical therapy, no brainer, right? So I took my first class, which was anatomy, and I had completely failed my anatomy class. In fact, my final exam, there was a picture of a foot and I pointed to the big toe and I said, this is a big toe. I did not get points on that. I failed that class. And I said, well, physical therapy probably also isn't for me. And how my college was going at that time, you had to take specific technology courses as electives to pass for the 4-year degree. And I was taking a Python coding class. And it was one of my most favorite classes I took because it required different types of critical thinking and problem solving, where I would feel like law and anatomy classes, it's very straightforward. This is the right answer or it's not. Where programming, you can have many different ways to find a solution. And I like that. I like that out of the box thinking. And cybersecurity was kind of a very new topic. My college had first introduced it once I was a computer science major for a couple of years. And the first class I ever took was about social engineering. And it talked about phishing and it talked about ways you can lure people into being manipulated into getting security risk and, threats on their computer. And I said, whoa, this is fun. Let's kind of pursue some of this. And I got real involved in network security, real involved in PCAPs and network forensics. And eventually I found my way into my first job. And I was very lucky to get onto a Fortune 500 company right out of college. And I wore many hats working there. I did a lot of network security engineering, a lot of endpoint. And then I found my way into the security operations side, which is what I'm doing now. So I work out of a security operations center. And it's kind of cool because my team is a global location. And so it's very interesting to see what the different parts of the globe are seeing compared to what's happening here in the States. And especially when you go back and talk with your community, and hear what everyone else is doing on the defender side, you're like, oh, there's all these new types of threats out there. This is fun. So long-winded story as to how I got into cybersecurity. So here you go.
Very cool. That's interesting. Interesting to know about the bodybuilding that you still into working out.
And very into working out. Obviously I'm a little older now, so my body doesn't like to lift as much as it used to, but yeah, I'm very, very involved in the gym, especially since I work at Garmin. Everyone's very into pursuing their passions, and weightlifting is definitely one of my passions still.
Oh, very cool. So I don't know if you've met JJ Manila yet, or Jennifer Manila. She's a powerlifter.
I've heard, but no, I've not.
Yeah. She's pretty nice. We were also connected for several years, and we got to meet at HughesCon last year. So,
well, I remember during your talk, you talked about your wrestling background, and I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting the different things we do before we actually find where we want to work, what works out for us. Because for me, it was, I have to enjoy what I'm doing, or I can't. It's just hard to want to show up every day and do the job. So it's got to be interesting. So.
Absolutely.
So based on what you did now, for someone that's trying to get into, being a SOC analyst, what would you recommend for someone that wants to get in that type of role?
Yeah, I always say, especially, regardless if you're in high school right now, or even if you're a college student and you're just kind of going out there and you're like, I want to break in the field, I always say get involved in the community, because your community is going to teach you what's happening locally around you. This is how you get connections. This is how you find out what you like. Even as an analyst, right? I feel like some people are very into the detection engineering side of the security operations center. Some people are very into the analysis of the IOCs, like, for example, phishing emails, right? Some people love tearing apart phishing emails. That's not my passion in the security operations center. And, there's all these different types of corners. And so being involved in your community, you get to hear other people's journeys and how they mentored themselves and who they connected with. And that's kind of how you forge your own path a little bit. Gaining experience. When I was a college student, cybersecurity being very, very new, it's kind of like, I don't know how to get experience, especially when you read some of these job descriptions and they're like 1 to 2 years of IT experience. You're like, how do I get that? I can't even, get a job right now at McDonald's sometimes because it's such a flooded market with people trying to get part-time jobs. But I always say, kind of also go back to being involved in your community. I know a lot of local churches, at least in my area, they're always looking for someone to teach basic PowerPoint skills or even Excel skills, and then let alone having to talk about basic social media management. There's a lot of local high schools and middle schools that are looking for people to talk about security with social media, how to safely set security permissions on your account, how you should avoid strangers or adding people you don't really know. And this is all ways that you can build your resume, especially even if you like to do PowerShell scripting or even just basic coding development. Even your homework assignments, right? Put all of those on a GitHub repository, and then include that GitHub repository on your resume, because this is showing your growth as an individual from, hey, I created this a year ago, to compare to this is what I'm doing towards the end of my graduation, or even like the end of this online class that I took, or whatever the case is, right? Because an employer is going to look at that and they're going to be like, oh, this person's hungry and they're trying to learn. And not only are they trying to learn, but they're showcasing it now. They're giving back, and people can learn from this person as well. So there's a lot of different avenues. I always say there's a couple of free online sources to do as well. A lot of companies are posting public capture the flags. Was it Huntress right now? I know SANS does the holiday hack, and they're free to sign up for. And it gives you hands-on experience as well. And you can also connect online through different social media platforms like Blue Sky, Twitter, LinkedIn, and people are talking about these capture the flags and saying, hey, this is what's happening. This is the challenge I'm having. How did you guys overcome this roadblock with this flag? And it's a way for you to grow as well. And of course, there's other platforms like Hack the Box, and then also Try Hack Me, that offers free hands-on experience that you can also incorporate on your resume.
Yeah, I love that advice. I've seen some people downplay CTFs too much, especially people that complain about the OSCP. And the thing about CTF challenges, usually is more difficult than real world, because they purposely make it difficult to get in. So if you're able to navigate some of those challenges, what you find in the real world isn't going to be that bad.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is not just completing it, right? It's the fact that you're not giving up on a challenge. I mean, especially in day to day, right? It's not straightforward trying to find root cause of how a security risk was introduced into the environment. Or on the opposite side, I'm sure you can probably relate, right? Trying to get into the environment. You're gonna have to overcome all of these different roadblocks and find different types of solutions. And so having that innovative thinking is also a great highlight to have on your resume, even though it's a skill you probably can't write down, but you have something to showcase for it.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned the GitHub thing because it's kind of interesting. Really, the way to look at it is kind of a portfolio for
Yeah.
cybersecurity professionals, and it's kind of funny because we're used to graphics designers and artists needing portfolios, but it's getting to where it's very advantageous if you're a security professional be able to prove some of these skills because you got someone's
Yeah.
resume next to your resume and all it is just what classes you've taken, your
Yeah.
job history. It's kind of hard to stand out, and that recommendation you made is a really great way to stand out to hiring managers.
Yeah, especially on the blue side, right? Not only do we look for someone with that innovative thinking, but writing documentation goes a long way. And if you have that incorporated in your GitHub, not only did you show that, hey, you can script this PowerShell to automate this, but you also wrote a paragraph in a wiki to explain exactly what it is and how to set it up, right? That goes miles long because it's just those soft skills now that you're able to showcase as well as your technical.
And that's great that you bring that up because there's some people that are super technical, but they just don't have the
Yep.
soft skills. And a lot of times the people with really good soft skills, a lot of times will win out because they can
Yep.
communicate,
Yep.
verbally as well as written.
Yep. Absolutely.
So how important do you think certifications are to someone trying to break into security?
I'm a little biased there. I have 0 certifications on mine. I somehow went underneath the water and the radar with all of my certifications. It just depends, right? I always say the certification is going to get you the interview. The certification isn't going to get you the job. And
Mhm.
certifications have a lot of pros and cons. I know sometimes it could be very costly, especially if you're, just fresh into the field and you can't afford it and your employer's not paying for it. There's all these and things. Certifications are great because it allows you that time to study. And then studying it, you can go in and apply those techniques on the exam and then a showcase like, hey, I'm dedicated to this. I'm passionate for this. But on the other hand, you can also have people that are very passionate and very hungry that just work a lot of extra time to learn more about those, I would say, I don't know, areas, terms, buzzwords, whatever's on that certification that you're pursuing into that field. And it's 2 different things. I work with some very, very smart people who don't even have a high school diploma and they fought from like the bottom ground up just to be in this field. And then you also have people who are so passionate that they're getting every single acronym in the book on their resume. But again, right, it's gonna be value added to that person. Now, me personally, if I had the time and the money now, I would definitely go pursue a couple of certifications here and there, just because it's highlighting, hey, I'm a SME now in this area.
Yeah, that's good I'm glad that you mentioned not having the certifications because some people think you have to have a degree or have to have certifications. And just as you mentioned, people without high school degree diplomas
Yeah,
that are very good at it. So it's good for people to see all that because sometimes some people just aren't good test takers and they're really intimidated by that, or they don't
yeah.
have a college degree. So it's good to have examples such as yourself that you don't have a certification, but you do have degrees, right?
Yep, I do. In fact, I teach college on the side part-time, and it's funny that you mentioned about the test taking. I purposely make my tests not one question at a time because I'm one of those students that I can't do a single question. I like to go from the top and then the bottom, and then back to the middle. I don't know. It's just how my brain thinks. I can't think in linear. So I always try to make my college exams a little more open where they can just kind of go back and forth if they needed to. But
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's one of the things I think about some of these certifications too. That's kind of you need to test the knowledge, but I think sometimes they get carried away with some certifications trying to be more difficult. I
yes.
mean, I remember going through the CISSP and the way they actually tell you the key to it is picking the most correct answer. And in some cases, it's kind of different than just having a absolute right answer. It's
Yeah.
picking the most correct. And so some of those things are just kind of weird. And I think they really should just answer more straightforward questions instead
You're
of
like,
trying to
well, the
trick
day I
people.
had today,
Yeah.
it could be this one or this one.
So as you mentioned, some people only don't even have high school diplomas. What are your thoughts about certification? I mean, degrees. So, do you believe people should have degrees? Do you believe it's helpful, or what's your advice
I
there?
think I think it's a long-term investment. Right away, I mean, especially like with who I connect with in the community, hearing their journeys and their stories. There's a lot of people that I know that are out there that are very successful that don't have a college degree right away. But as they continue their climb, especially if you decide to go through leadership or if you go into that very high level architect role one day, a lot of good reputable companies are starting to require you to have that 4-year degree plan because now it's a brand that the company wants to represent. Like, hey, we have educated people in these very high paying roles. So even though like right out, you might not need that degree, I always say just go back and get it because now it's also adding weight. And then if you decide to leave a organization, right, you're making yourself a little more marketable, even with those certifications. It makes yourself marketable. And going back, it doesn't always mean that you're going to get the job, but it might help you get that interview that you're looking for.
Yeah, sometimes it's difficult to go back to college after you've been in the
Yeah,
field for a while. So it
it
seems
is.
like one of the things I like to tell people is you want a degree to begin with. If you're wanting a degree, do it either way,
Yeah.
whether it's going to help you get a job or not, because one day you'll regret that you didn't get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember when I had just graduated with my bachelor's, I went right into my master's program because I told myself I'm not going to do it now. I'm not going to do it at all.
Yeah.
And I might as well just like get on the horse and go.
That's really what I should have done with my bachelor's degree. Got my 2-year degree,
Yeah.
took a break, and then never did go back. Well, I did try to I went through WGU, but then I started teaching at Dallas College. I was teaching pen testing there. And so it was kind of difficult to try to take classes along with teaching. So I didn't
It's
continue my
hard.
bachelor's degree. Yeah.
It's hard, especially when you got work, you got college, and then you got all those other passions that you're pursuing. It's like,
So
I
what
just
is
want
some,
to go home.
oh yeah. Yeah. You're just kind of ready for a break, especially after getting, 4-year degree, and then you're out in the field and wanting to continue learning, and you want
Yep.
some free time. And then you have to balance that with learning stuff for your job as well.
Oh, yeah. Continuous education.
So what are your thoughts on other things that people can do to help their likelihood of getting jobs? Because as well as I do, you try to apply online through their application system. Even if you're totally qualified, you may not hear back from them. So what are some ways that you would advise people to try to get around the HR firewall?
Oh my gosh. I always love seeing where people post that are like, I applied for this job 6 months ago. Back it was like 2 years ago when I was job hunting. I applied for this Fortune 50 company, and I won't name drop out of respect, but I already had a job. I was already happy in my role. I was already established, and then I get an email and goes, "Hey, we finally got to your resume, and we're looking for a technical interview. Are you interested?" And I was like, "I applied 8 months ago." No, no, but thank you. And I always say it's easier to get an interview when you know someone. In fact, a lot of the companies I was very happy working for, the first job I landed right out of college, it was because I knew someone that worked there. And so it allowed me to have that network avenue. Same thing with the role I'm in now. I had a very great networking opportunity that allowed me to land a job I'm very happy in. And for people to get past that, especially write out, it's always hard to write a resume because you're like, I don't know where to begin. I don't know how to highlight things. Look at the job description. And I always say, regardless if you're job hunting, you know your worth, you know how passionate you are and how hungry and how much time and energy you're going to apply for a job. If you read the job description and it does not speak to you, do not even apply for it because I guarantee you're not going to like the interview. And regardless if it's you not doing well in the interview or the person interviewing you, it's just, if you're not passionate about what you applied for, it's just not going to go well. So read that job description. And there's been a couple even the college kids that I teach, I always say, read it really well. And especially if you're looking for an entry level, if the first sentence is 5+ years of experience, don't even apply for it, because now you have someone that either didn't take the time to review the job posting in the first place, or B, they have people that are creating a job description that doesn't understand the role itself. There's enough red flags there that you probably don't want to really invest in your time. And your time is very valuable because you can't get that back. It's one of our most renewable resources that we could never get back at all. And
Yes.
it is. And then also, if you finally find a job that you're like, wow, I'm really passionate about this, look at the qualifications. Go back to your resume. Does your resume highlight those things, right? Because when you submit your resume, especially in a PDF format, they're going to scan whatever automated source to pick up keywords out there, especially on your LinkedIn. If your LinkedIn doesn't have a match of your qualifications, now something doesn't look marketable, and it might be a red flag, and it might not be an immediate pass. So building a very sustainable resume is very good. And another thing is making your work history I guess measurable. It's not really qualitative, but for example, if you work at a pizza shop and you're like, worked well with a team, and going back to worked with 8 different crew members to meet XYZ deadline, that's a little more marketable line sentence than something that's just, hey, I did team building, right? Now you're measuring it. And that's something an employer can really relate back to. Also, going back to the whole networking thing, I always say get involved in your community. Someone knows someone that works somewhere. There's a lot of Discord community chats out there for cybersecurity. There's a lot of LinkedIn people out there. A very good person I always like to follow for resume and job advice is Josh Fulmer. Josh works for Dragos, and he posts a lot of wonderful content on LinkedIn applications, how to pass an interview, things that you should prep for. But those are really the main things I always like to advocate for: is look at your resume, look at the job description, and really get out there and network very well.
So kind of we were talking before we started the podcast, and so you do a lot of speaking, and you've got a lot of activities going on outside of your day job. How do you kind of balance life and avoid burnout? So what's your
Oh,
recommendations there?
yes. Yes. Especially working in a security operations center, right? People come in, they look at an alert, they close the alert, and then what do they do next? They look at an alert, they close an alert, look at an alert, close an alert. It's a lot of redundant tasks. And having something to pursue your passions with makes the job a little more fulfilling. My day-to-day is absolutely bananas. There's some days I wake up at 4 a.m. just to have a quiet moment because I look at my meeting schedule and I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be one of those days. I'm excited. So I always go to work and I always set time aside for myself. Whether it's Thursday night, I love going to Applebee's. That is my night. I go to Applebee's, I get a basket of fries, and I go home and I watch The Office. That is my Thursday night to a T. So I don't know if anyone can relate to that. Especially when I pursue a lot of talking. Talking is one of my passions. I love public speaking. I always try to go to areas maybe that I really enjoy. Vegas is a fun time to go for cybersecurity events. You're networking. There's a lot of dinners and people that you can work with. And so something that might be very stressful, like speaking in front of 200 to 300 people, now becomes a little more enjoyable because I'm at a place I enjoy and I'm seeing people that I know, and it's kind of a small community network. So having a passion to pursue outside my day-to-day definitely helps a lot.
Yeah, that's great. So for anyone that wants to get into public speaking, speaking at conferences, what's your advice?
Yeah, so when I first started, I knew nothing about public speaking. I knew nothing about how to get there or what to do. In fact, Philip, you were the person that actually inspired me to get into public speaking. You
Oh,
and Mike
cool.
Miller, because I
That's
would see you
awesome.
guys post, and I'm like, oh, that looks fun. And so I literally went on Google and I typed cyber conferences near me. And B-Sides, I feel like, is very local to a lot of communities in the area. And it's also a good way to connect with your communities through B-Sides. And they had a call for paper. And I thought to myself, nobody wants to see me talk. Nobody cares about what I have to say. And then, of course, you look back the previous year and you see what everyone's posted, and it's like, oh, I hacked XYZ product. And you're like, oh, or even like, the cyber hacker week that we had in Vegas this year, people were hacking satellites, and you're like, oh, what am I doing? But I thought to myself, what is something I really enjoy talking about? What is my passion in this field? And what is something that can benefit my community? Because if I'm going to spend 30 or 40 minutes talking about something, I want someone to feel the energy and passion I have for this and be able to take it back to their day to day. And so I talked about social engineering. I talked about phishing education and how to improve phishing education in a business, because I feel like that's very relatable in today's world. Human firewalls is a very hot topic, especially with October being done and Cyber Month. People want to know what they can do to improve security education in a very cost-effective way. So I applied for my first talk in the Kansas City area, and I'm like, I didn't make the first cut for the call for papers. And I was like, oh, well, I tried, right? And then 2 weeks later, I got an email. They're like, hey, congrats. And I'm like, oh, this just felt real now. And I made my presentation. I kind of went through it. I made some adjustments and everything. And of course, going up to my first public speaking event, I was very nervous. I remember I was shaking. I had the microphone and I was like this. And my talk's on YouTube. And I did pretty good for my first talk. I will be a humble brag about that. I felt pretty good about it. And it opened an opportunity for me to talk at another local conference, because someone was sitting right in the middle row and they came up to me. They're like, hey, I run events also in Kansas City. And I was like, oh, cool. And they're like, we have another cybersecurity conference coming. Would you be able to do this on December 14th? Yeah, I got nothing else going on in December 14th. Yeah, absolutely. So then that opened that opportunity. And of course, doing that same presentation the second time, you kind of know where to make people laugh, where people are kind of like sitting on their seats, where people are going to be taking pictures of your slides and where the audience is engaged at. And it was a good conference. And so at that point, to me, I said, this is something I really enjoy doing. This is something I involved, like, it's my passion. I'm giving back to my community. And then this is where I started getting involved with other organizations. Secure World was one that I had a great opportunity to apply and start speaking at those events. And that led to, hey, we have an opportunity at this B-Sides community. So I always say, for people that are wanting to get into speaking, think about, what do you enjoy? What do you enjoy about cybersecurity? Because if you feel inspired and passionate with what you're talking about, this is how you're going to motivate people in the audience. And they're going to feel very passionate, inspired with what you have to say. And then start locally, because that's going to be your community. It's a safe area. And you might know people say in the audience, it's kind of comforting. And then look at some other opportunities. I will say, if you want to travel, prepared to spend out of pocket. I made a LinkedIn post about this. A lot of great speakers in the area spend thousands of dollars every year just to talk to the community, just to give back, because they're that passionate with what they have to provide back to cybersecurity. And I always say, this is one of the most amazing things about cybersecurity, is that we learn and grow from one another. And conferences and speaking events are definitely one way to do it.
Yeah, definitely a great way to build your brand too. So,
Yep.
And I was very, very impressed with your speaking skills. So,
Thank you.
besides Albuquerque, what number of talk was this for you since
I
you've been
think that
speaking?
was 9 this year.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's really good.
Yeah. And it was crazy, because when I did Kansas City, I think there was about 50 people in the audience. And then, of course, as I continued to speak at other events, that went from 50 to 200 to 300. And then I was actually in Colorado for a speaking event during 23. And I had people message me on LinkedIn. They're like, hey, we saw that you're talking. And I was like, I don't know who you are. But thank you. And that's kind of cool, because then you're starting to get a reputation of like, hey, this person offers XYZ. And I'm very excited, because for I would say towards the end of this year, I actually started switching to my new material that I'm talking about. And a lot of people don't realize, like, you do the same presentation throughout the year. You don't make new presentations for each conference, because that's exhausting for us speakers, trying to like jump back and forth. But so I started introducing my new content for 24, and I'm very excited about that. So
So it was great to have you on the show. I appreciate you taking time. Is there anything you'd like to share before we wrap up your episode?
No, I really appreciate it. And for whoever's listening, I hope, they really take in something they can learn and, they can apply it to themselves. So,
Well, thanks again. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to The Philip Wiley Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Philip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Philip Wiley. Until next time.